My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC 289 fight card, giving you my DraftKings picks, predictions, and plays. But before I do, let's talk about the wild success that our community has. There have been over $150,000 in DraftKings, not bets, not the sports book, DraftKings winnings alone from our community over the last 4 events. In the last month, premium members of WeWantPicks.com have tweeted, tagged, thanked us for their winning lineups. $78,000 from Jack Spade, $50,000 from Jeffrey. Mitch, our boy Mitch, hit threw 150 down, got $2,000 back, a $13,000 get from Under Control. The community is absolutely crushing it, and it is not a coincidence that this many We Want Picks premium members are doing this well. That's not an accident. That's not luck. A few months ago, Joey Todoro hit a $60,000 get. And guess what? Premium membership is only $10 a month. $10 a month. We're not the $150 a month greedy. We're not the animals, the savages out there looking to separate you from your money. It's $10 a month. We are in the volume game, and it is paying out $150,000 in winnings in the last month alone. And with that $10 for premium membership, you're going to get full breakdowns, right? We're going to give you all of our plays for your cash core lineups, your GPP cores. We're going to give you live dogs and leverage. We're also going to rank every single fighter in every single player pool by salary for you. And you're going to get a cheat sheet. This cheat sheet is all the information you need right there smack in front of you. You're going to get the scoring projections, the ownership projections, as well as the leverage calculation. And all of these numbers are ours. We're not buying them from somebody else and throwing them out. These are ours. We have a guy behind the scenes, a data analyst, that every single week is putting out these predictions, putting out these numbers, and we're absolutely crushing it. Our DraftKings ownership projections are either number 1 or number 2 in the space. That's against the roto grinders of the world, the big companies of the world. We're either number 1 or number 2. And if we are number 2, whoever's number 1 is different every week, meaning we are the most consistent DraftKings ownership projections in the industry. That's just a straight up fact. $10 a month. You're also going to get the optimizer. This is going to build a lineup for you. This will build 150 lineups for you. This is preloaded. That cheat sheet is populated every single Friday by 6 p.m. Eastern. Fully loaded, ready to go for you to use and to build some winning lineups. WeOwnPicks.com. Just click become a member. It's $10. You could think my insight is trash, but who cares? The tools, the breakdowns, the leverage, the ownership projections, those are just hard fact numbers. That alone is worth well over that $10 premium tag. Let's go ahead and break down these fights. There's only 11 fights on this card, which makes DraftKings this week even trickier. Even trickier, right? Because if you have 30 fighters, right? You got 15 fights. If you have 30 fighters, you got a little room, right? We got some dogs. We got some heavy favorites. We can separate ourselves from the pack. Here, 11 fights, only 22 fighters, and weigh-ins haven't even started yet. So hopefully that doesn't get dwindled down. We have to be very, very precise with our picks and our breakdowns. But let's go ahead and jump in. Opening up the card, we got Maria Oliveira taking on Diana Belbita. 2 strikers. They're going to come forward. They're going to be busy. Maria Oliveira has big, heavy power. She is only 1-2 in the UFC, but she lost to Vanessa Demopoulos in a dogfight. Right? She was losing that fight. She was getting sort of taken down and controlled. And then she came out in the 3rd round, guns blazing, looking to get the finish. And I love to see that in a fighter. She's not going to quit on herself. She doesn't walk away. She doesn't just give up. All right, I'm down 2 rounds. I have nothing to offer in the 3rd. She will come forward. She will swing big. And her UFC debut, she lost to Tabitha Ricci. Okay, the Gloria DePaula win is a very solid win. And you can trust Maria Oliveira to come forward, fight for your money. She is taking on Diana Belbita. Diana's coming back after about a year and a half away. She's had several small injuries, no major, huge surgeries or anything, but just injury plagued that's been keeping her on the shelf. She is a busy come forward striker. She's 1-3 in the UFC. The win is over Hannah Goldie, and I actually think Hannah Goldie's a little better than her record as well. The Gloria DePaula loss was a razor thin loss, and the Molly McCann one was a bit interesting, but Molly McCann's a little better as well. So decent slate here, but Deanna's going to come forward. She's going to stay busy with the strikes, and she's going to look to work in takedowns. We've seen her sneak takedowns in a couple of her fights. She has that ability. She's got decent top control, and she could try to squeak out a submission. I just don't see that happening. I think Maria Oliveira is going to get this done. The problem is, I don't know how well she'll score. It's going to be a striking match. Let's go back to that. I don't see a finish. So maybe, if we're lucky, maybe we'll get 82 out of her. But this 82 includes 2 takedowns. So this is actually a 72 score, which is not great. And I feel like it's going to be something like that, honestly. So I think Maria Oliveira wins. I don't think I'm going to put her in my lineup. Then we have David Dvorak taking on Steve Erceg. David Dvorak was already on this card. His opponent stepping up on short notice. David Dvorak, he's a striker. He's got really nice forward pressure, nice, solid low kicks, and he pairs that with some pretty clean boxing. He's very fundamentally sound, pretty well-rounded guy. He is coming off this loss to Beneil Kopp, where he was able to get a handful of takedowns. He has 2 takedowns here. Those are the first we've seen from him in the UFC. Oh, he's on a 2-fight skid. All right, he lost to Mateusz Nicolau, who's solid as hell, and Beneil Kopp, who is solid as hell also. His first 3 fights in the UFC were clean striking wins. The problem is they don't score well. That's a genuine issue. 58 points in a decision win, 74 points in a decision win. And if I'm paying $9,400 and I get 58 points out of you, I am pissed. So while I do think David Dvorak absolutely smokes Steve Erceg, that $9,400 price point's a little tricky. Steve Erceg, no data here, UFC debut, short notice. He is a prospect. He was signed by the UFC, I think a year or so ago. Now he's officially making that debut on short notice. He is a slick grappler, right? If you get into a scramble with him, he could snatch something up and he will do it lightning quick. How about that timing? Went bang, and then look at me. Lightning quick. Solid scrambler. He will strike with you, but his hands are too wide. His head goes absolutely nowhere, and he just gets lit up. He does have a decent chin, and while David Dvorak is going to be the far better striker, he's not really a drop you, put you out kind of guy. I think David Dvorak gets to Steve Erceg's head whenever he wants to. I think David Dvorak defends the takedowns. I think this is a clear win for David Dvorak. I just don't know if he wins by finish, so I'm not going to spend that $9,400 because we just saw in the stats, if he wins by decision, he puts up almost nothing. Then we have Blake Bilder versus Kyle Nelson. Blake Bilder, pretty big favorite here, $9,000. He only has 1 fight in the UFC, just came forward, dominated young, threw up 1,000,000 strikes, had the takedown, had some solid control time, scored 85 points. But he was an underdog in that fight. That 85 points was solid, honestly. And obviously, if you spend $9,000, you want a little more than that, but we didn't spend $9,000 on him last time. We only spent $7,900. He is an aggressive grappler. He's going to shoot when he gets the opportunity. He explodes on the ground, right? If he sees an opening, bang, he'll explode. But he doesn't get reckless, meaning he's not going to chase a submission that isn't there and then lose everything and end up back on his feet. Blake Bilder, very good, solid prospect. He's taking on Kyle the Monster Nelson. Kyle's a solid striker. He has some very, very real power in his hands. He has been in the UFC for a while. You're going to see since 2018. But the wins are a little hard to come by, right? The only win is against Reyes. His last fight was a draw. He was losing that as well. He was down on the scorecards, but then Do Ho Choi headbutted him. The ref took a point away, ends up in a draw. So Kyle Nelson, in all reality, is 1-2-3-4-5 in the UFC, but he is a little bit better than that record, right? I said he has that power in his hands. If you can create a scramble, he can end up on top, right? He's not shooting a ton of his own takedowns outside of that Choi fight. But if you shoot on him, it's a little sloppy. He'll scramble well. He'll end up on top. If Blake Bilder wants to end up in a firefight, he could be on the wrong end of that power. But if Blake Bilder wants to be clean, precise, shoot takedowns, work from there, he can get it done. I do trust Blake Bilder on a card where, the favorites are all mid-level type favorites. I think Blake Bilder is one of the better ones. I will probably have him in my lineup. Then we have Aiemann Zahabi taking on Aoriqileng. Aiemann Zahabi, Firas Zahabi's younger brother. He's pretty good, right? He's not great. There's nothing about him that's just like, wow, this guy's a prospect. But he is technically sound. He's well-rounded. He's decent everywhere. And he does have some power. We watched him just absolutely smoke Draco Rodriguez. And then with the Ricky Turcios fight, this was one of the most boring fights. And for Ricky Turcios to be in a boring fight is honestly crazy, right? Ricky Turcios is a wild, come-forward pressure kind of guy. But Aiemann Zahabi has sort of perfected the let's slow this pace down game. He slows it down. He's just pumping a jab, keeping you at bay. You're never confident enough to shoot because he's always got threatening the underhook. So Aiemann Zahabi can slow a pace down and squeak out these decisions. That's exactly what he did against Ricky Turcios, but he only put 52 points on the board. I am not spending $7,900 on a guy that's going to put 52 points on the board. He's taking on a Aoriqileng. A Aoriqileng is not that style. Aoriqileng's not going to slow the pace. He wants to get that pace going. He wants to come forward. He wants to keep it busy. He wants to touch you up. He wants to back you against the cage. He wants to grind you to the ground. He's constantly moving forward. So the breakdown's a little interesting because I think Aiemann Zahabi, in a very close fight, I think he probably wins this fight because he slows that pace down. He can keep a Aoriqileng sort of at bay. But I would never put him in my lineup because the scoring is just so insanely low. A Aoriqileng at $8,300, if you think he wins, he will put up some okay numbers, right? He didn't do giant numbers against Jay Perrin, but he also didn't work in any wrestling. I think he will work in wrestling against Aiemann Zahabi. I think he will get him against the cage. Aiemann has been taken down in the past. So if you are on the Aoriqileng side, Jacob, for example, Jacob thinks he comes forward, gets Aiemann Zahabi out of sorts because he's backing him up and gets it done, then $8,300 is a solid price point for a guy that can grind, can get takedowns, does have some power of his own. I'm not touching either one of these fighters because while I think Zahabi wins, I don't think he puts up any real numbers. And, I'm not going to put a Aoriqileng in there at the favorite price when I think he loses. Then we have Miranda Maverick, Jasmine Jasudavicius. Look, a lot of people don't like this breakdown. Here's the reality of it. Miranda Maverick is the better MMA fighter in this matchup. But she strikes and then looks to wrestle. She strikes and then looks to wrestle. She is fighting a better wrestler. And I think she's going to struggle with that. I could be way off here. I mentioned Miranda Maverick is the better MMA fighter, and this is an MMA fight. So, in theory, you should go with that person. But she's $9,300. She's a 4-1 favorite, at least at one point was. The logic has prevailed, and that line has tightened. But Miranda Maverick is very tough. She's going to come forward. She's going to look for takedowns. Shanna Young, she was getting lit up on her feet. Miranda Maverick was getting lit up on her feet and then really had to get her grappling going, which she did, and then put up huge numbers. Against Mazo, got the takedown, got the submission. Got a lot of takedowns, actually, and got the submission. And she beat Macy Barber. This was a bad decision. She beat Macy Barber. So the reality is the only loss we're looking at here is the Erin Blanchfield loss. But that's the only fight where somebody actually came forward on her and tried to take her down. That's the only fight where she didn't dictate the pace. And Erin Blanchfield just bodied her, tossed her around, threw her to the ground. And yeah, Miranda Maverick wasn't submitted, and that's a huge win in and of itself. But Macy Barber just absolutely pressured Miranda, backed her up, took her down, held her down, worked her, and did all of those things. And I think Jasmine can do that. Jasmine will be in my lineup at $6,900. She's got 3 fights in the UFC. The 2 takedowns against Hansen. She also had a reversal there. She's got fantastic hips, and if you create a scramble with Jasmine Jasudavicius, you're going to end up on the wrong side of that. She did lose to Natalia Silva, but Natalia Silva is going to beat most of the women in this division. Natalia Silva actually got her own takedowns, and then she came back renewed, refreshed, looked like a different person against Maria Fernandez. She had the 4 takedowns, almost 13 minutes of control time, and this Jasmine, the one that came forward, the one that was like, F the striking, I'm grappling here, that Jasmine beats Miranda Maverick. We have a woman who has wrestled her entire life, who has competed against the best wrestlers in her country long before she started her MMA career. She is a wrestler who then decided to compete in MMA. Miranda Maverick said, I want to fight. Then learned how to wrestle. So if we're thinking that the wrestling is the differentiator in this fight, then we have to go with the better wrestler. $6,900. I will have Jasmine in my lineup. I'm also a firm believer, if I'm on this camera, talking about fighters, good or bad, breaking fighters down every single week, I'm going to tag him in it. I'm going to let them respond. And that's exactly what happened here. For anybody who doesn't know, we did this breakdown, picked Jasmine, same way I just broke it down right now, tweeted the video out to Jasmine and Miranda, and Miranda retweeted it saying, basically unfair. There was only one fight where I got pressured and bullied. That was Aaron Blanchfield. That hasn't happened. Otherwise, I'm going to prove you wrong. Great response. And the community was like, why are you tagging the fighters in this? This is crazy. How could you pick against somebody and tag them? What are you advocating, talking shit behind somebody's back? That's crazy. That's crazy. We're talking about people. We're breaking them down. We're making predictions. And then, by all means, you want to respond, respond. Joseph Holmes. Nobody said anything when we tagged Joseph Holmes, and he threatened to kill Jacob. Tagged Joseph Holmes in the breakdown. He literally was like, I want to beat your stupid ass, you skinny little dweeb. Where was the outrage? So I'm a very big believer. You talk about somebody, you let them know you talked about them, and they can engage if they like. Jasmine Jasudavicius, $6,900. That's a phenomenal price point for the much better wrestler in what is likely a wrestling matchup. That takes us to another interesting fight. Nassourdine Imavov versus Chris Curtis. Nassourdine Imavov coming off the embarrassing loss to Sean. This was embarrassing. Like, Nassourdine Imavov embarrassed the world, or himself, in this fight. He got Sean Strickland on short notice. Good size favorite. Should have won this fight, and just really didn't get things going. He just couldn't handle the Sean Strickland volume, the Sean Strickland pressure. He didn't work as well backing up as he does moving forward. He didn't get any takedowns in. He did score 51 points, but that was over 5 rounds. This was a 5-round fight, not a 3-round fight. But outside of that sort of embarrassing loss, Nassourdine Imavov is a good striker. He's an accurate striker. He puts his jab out there really well. He has solid elbows. He looks very comfortable mixing things up, and he can work in wrestling. He's got very good wrestling. He's not Nurmagomedov just constantly diving at legs, but when he does want to wrestle, he has success. He's taking on Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis, $7,700 is a decent price point. Chris Curtis has incredible power. He is a counter striker with some of the best takedown defense in this division. So already, I don't think Nassourdine Imavov is going to take him down. So now we're in a striking match. Who's the better striker between Imavov and Chris Curtis? Very different styles. Imavov wants to come forward. He can counter strike, but he's also moving forward, throwing stuff out there. He's going to be longer, taller, probably working some leg kicks. Chris Curtis is the counter striker. He's got phenomenal counter striking. You're going to throw something, he's going to slip. He's going to throw a short left hook. He's going to throw a short right. And that's how he's knocking people out. Came into the UFC, knocked out Phil Hawes. Bang, counter strike. Knocked out Brendan Allen. Bang, counter strike. Knocked out Joaquin Buckley. Bang, counter strike. That's not him moving forward. That's him backing up, cracking. And in every single one of these fights, Joaquin Buckley was beating him, right? Landing the better strikes. Phil Hawes beating him, landing the better strikes. Brendan Allen beating him, landing the better strikes. And I think that's the problem here. Chris Curtis relies too much on the backing up counter strike. And I don't think Nassourdine is going to fall into that. He's not going to chase. He's not going to expose himself. He'll keep it clean. I think Nassourdine touches up Chris Curtis. I think Nassourdine wins this fight. But Chris Curtis at $7,700 with that one-punch knockout power, a guy you know is not going to get put out because he's incredibly tough. Not a bad play. I will probably have one of these guys in my lineup. I think you should. The money is decent. And Chris Curtis with that insane power at the underdog value, probably the better play. But I will have one of them in my lineup, even though I think Nassourdine probably squeaks out a decision because Chris Curtis is just backing up entirely too much. Then we have Marc-Andre Barriault taking on Eryk Anders. This is another interesting fight, and I am going to go the dog here, but let's go ahead and break it down. We got Marc-Andre Barriault. He's going to come forward. He's a well-rounded guy. He's got solid kickboxing, good takedowns when he needs them, solid jiu-jitsu. He's typically looking to pressure you forward, wear you down on your feet. He does have solid striking volume at more than 6 significant strikes per minute, and he's coming off that knockout over Julian Marquez where if I didn't see these numbers, I would have thought he landed 200 strikes in that finishing sequence. He was very impressive there. The reality is, he's a well-rounded guy. He can be dangerous, right? We can see some power from him. He can submit people, right? Catch him. That's what happened against Jordan Wright. Sort of sucked it up there in a scramble, got that done. He is taking on Eryk Anders. I think Marc-Andre probably should win a decision. Probably, right? But Eryk Anders is dumb athletic. Eryk Anders is super powerful. He's going to come forward. He's not a quitter. He's not a guy you're really going to get out of there. Obviously, Muniz submitted him, but that's Muniz. Marc-Andre Barriault is not Muniz. Outside of that, he's a durable guy with a ton of experience, a ton of power, scrambling well. He's a wild athlete, played D1 football at one of the best D1 football schools on the planet. He's parlayed that athleticism into fist fights. He absolutely broke Dawkins down, just beat the shit out of him. So I think Eryk Anders is a solid DraftKings play for two reasons. One, I think he can win this fight. And it could look like the Dawkins fight. He could come forward, throwing big, just bully big brother Marc-Andre. Or even in losses, he makes things happen. He doesn't quit. Marc-Andre can be taken down. Jordan Wright did it a couple of times before he got guillotined. And he put up 52 points in this loss to Park. So I think Eryk Anders, and I think a lot of people think he won that fight. So it should have been 82 points. But the reality is, I think Eryk Anders can win this fight. While Marc-Andre can probably squeak out a decision, Eryk's the more dangerous guy. Eryk can work in the wrestling. I like Eryk at $7,800 because you do need underdogs in your lineup. Then we got Nate Landwehr taking on Dan Ige. Pick your side. Pick your side. There are so many unknowns here, and Nate Landwehr is probably the better money because of he's an underdog. What am I, my mother? My mother's an immigrant, so she will mix up words and say shit like that. Because he is an underdog, he might be the better DraftKings play, is what a normal first-generation American was trying to say there. But the reality is Nate Landwehr is going to come forward. He's going to be busy with his hands. He's going to shoot a million takedowns. He's Nate the Train, and he's like a train. He's hard to get off the tracks. He's not going to stop. He's just going to keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Sometimes he's a little too excited for his own good, right? Sometimes he'll get a little too reckless, a little too wild, start chasing a little too much instead of sticking to something. But Nate can grind people down, break them down, stay on top of them, not stop, not quit. He beat Austin Lingo, but that was Austin Lingo on short notice. The David Onama win was the impressive one because Nate stepped up. Nate got it done, and he was like a 3-1 underdog lit at $7,600. Actually, Jesus Christ. He's cheaper than that here against Dan Ige. Dan Ige, as we all know, just recently broke a 3-fight skid. He was 1-4 in the 5 before that, but the loss was Calvin Kattar. The loss was Korean Zombie. The loss was Josh Emmett. The loss was Evloev. Then he finally got not a top 5 guy, a top 10 guy in Damon Jackson. He just beat the absolute shit out of that guy. And the reality is Damon Jackson and Nate Landwehr have some similarities. They're going to come forward. They're going to wrestle. So there's a lot of similarities there. But the difference is Nate Landwehr is way tougher, way grittier, and is really just going to come forward and grind. So I do think Dan Ige probably wins. If you learned anything from the Damon Jackson fight, it's that there are levels to this. And Dan Ige is likely on another level than Nate Landwehr. With that being said, I'm probably going to use Nate Landwehr in my lineup because even in losses, that guy's going to come forward, wrestle. He's going to work for your money. And for Dan Ige to get to the $9,100, you're going to need a stoppage. We got to go all the way back to 2021 for that Tucker win. That was a short one-punch knockout. That was incredible. But outside of that, his decisions, 75, 58. He does have that 85 there. But I just think Nate Landwehr's better money in DraftKings, although Dan Ige, we're going to find out how good he really is. Meaning, we know he's good. We know he's a high-level guy. We know he's fought some high-level competition. But he's going to have somebody scrappy in his face, and he might get taken down a bunch of times like how Evloev got it done. So I'm going to go Nate Landwehr for DraftKings, but anybody wanting to go Dan Ige, I mean, he's definitely the better fighter in this matchup. We're just going to find out if pressure is going to be an issue. We got Mike Malott taking on Adam Fugitt. Listen, Mike Malott, $8,800. He is a prospect. The UFC threw him on this card for a reason. He's a good-looking dude. He comes forward. Tons of ways to win fights. He can submit you. He can knock you out. He's a well-rounded guy. He's got a loose striking style, so he's going to box and kickbox at the same time. He's very technically sound, and he manages range well. He has no background, right? He wasn't a wrestler that converted. He wasn't a striker that converted. He has learned MMA from the beginning, which is why he's good at everything and he doesn't panic in any situation. He should win this fight, and I will have him in my lineup at $8,800, especially the numbers he puts up. But he is fighting a non-stop wrestler. He's fighting Adam Fugitt, who is going to come forward and shoot takedown after takedown after takedown. And we haven't seen yet how Mike Malott handles a non-stop wrestler. We're going to this weekend. I'm going to assume he can handle it. I'm going to assume the more well-rounded, younger guy fighting on his hometown on a big pay-per-view, I'm going to assume that guy can handle this. He's going to have more power in his hands. His jiu-jitsu is going to be slick. Let's hope he can stop the takedowns. Otherwise, he's going to be one of the biggest busts on the card, and it's going to be a problem. I'm going to go Mike Malott, but Adam Fugitt does have a very clear path, and it's exactly what he did to Keita Shota. Shoot, 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 wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. But I am still going to trust Mike Malott and the UFC marketing machine to get that done. Co-main event, I'm not going to try to convince anybody of anything here. I think Beneil Dariush wins. Beneil Dariush is a world champion, no-gi guy. So he has very, very high-level jiu-jitsu experience. He's the more accomplished between the two outside of the octagon in actual jiu-jitsu competitions. Inside the octagon, Charles Oliveira is the most accomplished jiu-jitsu guy, period, end of story. But I think Beneil Dariush wins this fight. He's going to have more power in his hands. He's going to have the grappling, I don't want to say edge, but the grappling acumen to not get caught in something. And he's going to have the wrestling. I think Beneil Dariush watched what Islam Makhachev did and can do that. Islam struck with him, and then when he had his opportunity, took him down, wasn't afraid of the jiu-jitsu. And anybody who's not afraid of Charles Oliveira's jiu-jitsu can get it done, can beat Charles Oliveira. But there's not going to be any Charles Oliveira slander here, because Charles Oliveira is very good. He's one of the best lightweight champions we've had. He had an incredible win streak and a nice little title reign before Islam beat him. If you're on the Charles Oliveira side, you're going to get one of the best lightweights at $7,600, and you should do that. I personally think Beneil Dariush gets it done. $8,600 is a little steep. I would have preferred a much closer line here, so I'm going to have to play some Tetris with my DraftKings lineup to get Beneil Dariush in there. Whoever wins this fight wins by finish. I don't see this going to a decision, although it is only 3 rounds and not 5. So if you're on the Charles Oliveira side, you're going to get an incredible discount. Go for it. I mean, look at the numbers this dude puts up. That streak was incredible. Look at the numbers he put up. Look at this. It's insane what he did in that win streak. So if you think Charles Oliveira wins, $7,600, he should be in your lineup. Frankly, he may end up in mine just because of the way the numbers work, but I do think Beneil Dariush gets this done. And then we have the main event, Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana. Listen, here's the breakdown with Amanda Nunes and Irene Aldana. Everybody who's on the Irene Aldana side, I haven't heard anybody say she's got the better X, right? I haven't heard anybody say she has more power. She's the better striker. She's got better jiu-jitsu. I haven't heard anybody actually say Irene Aldana is better than Amanda Nunes. All I've heard is, oh, Amanda Nunes is rich now. Amanda Nunes has a kid now. Amanda Nunes doesn't need the money, doesn't have to, so she's not going to be prepared. And that might all be true. And she might come in here unprepared and lose. But the reality is, Amanda Nunes is the much better fighter everywhere. Everywhere in this fight. Maybe pure striking technique, Irene Aldana is better. But Amanda Nunes has more power. Amanda Nunes has the wrestling. Amanda Nunes has the jiu-jitsu. Amanda Nunes has the experience. Like, she's literally better everywhere. She's definitely the best to ever do it in the women's 35 or women's 45, without question. She may be the best to do it in the history of the UFC. And if she's not the best, she's top 3, top 5. And Irene Aldana stepping up on somewhat short notice, not the better fighter. So anybody on the Irene Aldana side is just hoping and praying that Amanda Nunes didn't do what she was supposed to do to prepare for this fight. And it's possible, right? We saw it in the first Juliana Pena fight. Amanda Nunes beat the brakes off of her and then got tired as hell and finished. But what happened the second time they fought? She went 25 minutes striking, wrestling, just beat Juliana Pena, just beat the absolute crap out of her bell to bell. I think Amanda Nunes wins this fight. The numbers are tricky. I mean, she's very, very expensive, $9,500, but it's a weird card. And if you're on the Amanda Nunes side, you probably have to have Charles Oliveira in your lineup. You probably have to go 9,500, 7,600, some Jasmine Jasudavicius in there. And that's probably what you have to do to get Amanda Nunes in there. But I think Amanda wins. I think she wins by finish. And I actually think she's going to retire. So that's what I'm going. That's how I'm going to break this all down. Guys, our community has had insane success. And not just the regular, the normal supporters that like, subscribe, comment. I'm only talking about premium members. Premium members specifically are crushing it. It is not an accident that people are taking down $78,000, $50,000, $13,000, $2,000. It is not an accident that our premium members are winning those types of contests and making that kind of money. It'd be the greatest coincidence of all time. We have the sharpest community in the world. They're using our tools. They're using our insight. They're using our DraftKings optimizer. They're using our ownership projections, our breakdowns, our player pool rankings, and they're making very real money. It is only $10 a month to become a premium member. WeWantPicks.com. Just click become a member. It's $10. What are we doing here?